Hello, and welcome to another story. A place where we turn the boisterous pages of the past, ever so slowly, to help you drift into a deep and restful sleep. I know, the image that brought you here might have promised a tale of chaos and folly. But as you know, here we seek the calm within the storm. We set aside the excitement and search for the quiet in forgotten details. So tonight, prepare your mind to release the worries of the day. Close your eyes and let me take you to the Middle Ages to discover together why the life of an assassin was in fact a long and exquisitely boring wait. The unglamorous truth of medieval assassins and more. Chapter 1. The Ritual of Tedium.
You sit on the cold stone floor of your small chamber, a space barely large enough for a grown person to stretch their arms. The walls are damp limestone, perpetually weeping with moisture that never quite dries. Your breath forms small clouds in the chilly air as you examine the tear in your heavy woolen cloak. Again, this is the third time this month you've had to mend this same spot. The fabric is coarse beneath your fingertips, rough and scratchy like the wool of an underfed sheep. You run your thumb along the frayed edges, feeling each individual fiber that has come loose from the weave. The tear is about 3 fingers wide, right at the hem where the cloak catches on brambles and stone steps. You reach for your small leather pouch containing your mending supplies. The needle is dull iron, bent slightly from years of use. You hold it up to the dim light filtering through the single narrow window, examining the eye that has been worn smooth by countless threads. The metal is cold against your palm, and you can feel the tiny imperfections in its surface. Threading the needle requires patience. The thread is rough hemp, dyed a muddy brown that matches nothing and everything in your drab existence. You lick the end of the thread, tasting the bitter flavor of the plant fibers. Your saliva makes the fibers stick together just enough to guide them through the needle's eye. It takes 3 attempts. Your fingers are stiff from the cold, and the light is poor. Outside, you can hear the distant sound of a bell tolling the hour. 7 times. Still early morning, but the sun has been up for some time now. You've been awake since before dawn, as always. Sleep comes fitfully in this profession, and you've learned to function on little rest. Push through, pull through, adjust. The tear is slowly closing, one small stitch at a time. The mended area will be slightly thicker than the surrounding fabric, creating a small ridge you'll feel every time you draw the cloak around your shoulders, but it will hold for a while.
Your neck aches from hunching over the mending. You roll your shoulders, hearing the small pops and creaks of joints that spend too much time in uncomfortable positions. The stone floor is unforgiving beneath you, and you can feel the cold seeping up through your legs despite the heavy wool of your hose.
The thread is running short. You'll need to tie it off soon and start a new length. You make 3 more small stitches, then carefully tie a knot, pulling it tight against the fabric. The knot disappears into the weave, invisible to casual observation. Good. You cut the thread with your small knife, the blade making a tiny snicking sound as it parts the fibers. Starting the new thread requires the same tedious process. Lick the end, guide it through the needle's eye. Adjust the length. Your tongue is dry from the repeated licking, and the hemp taste lingers unpleasantly in your mouth. You reach for the small clay cup of water beside you. The water is stale, room temperature, with a faint metallic taste from the cup's rough glaze, but it washes away the bitter fiber taste. More stitches. The motion is automatic now, your fingers working without conscious thought. Push through, pull through, adjust. The light from the window has shifted slightly, creating new shadows across your work. Soon it will be time to eat, then to pack your provisions. The mending takes another quarter hour. When it's finished, you hold the cloak up to examine your work. The mended area is barely visible, just a slight difference in the fabric's texture. You fold the cloak carefully, smoothing out the wrinkles with your palms. The wool is rough against your skin, and you can smell the earthy odor of the unwashed fabric mixed with the lingering scent of wood smoke from last night's fire. Now for the provisions. You have a small hemp sack, stained brown from years of use. Inside, you must pack enough food for 3 days' travel. The bread is hard, baked 5 days ago and already stale. You tap it against the stone floor, listening to the hollow sound it makes, like knocking on wood. The crust is thick and dark, with an uneven surface that will scrape against your teeth when you eat it. You wrap it in a piece of rough cloth, tucking the edges carefully to keep out moisture and insects. The cloth is scratchy against your palms, woven from coarse fibers that catch on the calluses of your hands. You tie it with a piece of string, making sure the knot is secure but not so tight that you won't be able to untie it with cold fingers. The cheese is hard and waxy, a pale yellow color that speaks of thin milk and poor aging. You press your thumb against its surface, feeling the slight give of the rind. It smells faintly sour, not unpleasant, but not appealing either, just functional. You wrap it in another cloth, this one slightly less coarse than the first. The cheese will keep for many days, growing harder and more difficult to chew as time passes. There are dried peas in a small leather pouch. You pour a handful into your palm, feeling their weight and texture. They're hard as pebbles, shrunken and wrinkled from the drying process. When soaked in water, they'll soften enough to eat, but they'll never regain their original texture. They taste of nothing much, but they fill the belly and provide strength for walking. A small flask of ale completes your provisions. The ale is thin and sour, made from poor grain and indifferent brewing, but it's safer than water from unknown sources, and it provides a small comfort during the long, cold nights ahead. You check the stopper, pressing it firmly into the neck of the flask. The leather is cracked and dry, but it still holds. Everything goes into the hemp sack. The bread at the bottom, then the cheese, then the peas. The ale flask you'll carry separately, tucked into your belt where you can reach it easily. The sack is heavy in your hands, heavier than it should be for so little food. But this is the reality of sustenance without comfort. nutrition without pleasure.
Your dagger comes next. It's a simple blade, nothing more than a pointed length of iron with a wooden handle wrapped in leather strips. The blade is perhaps as long as your hand, wide enough to be useful, but not so large as to be unwieldy. You draw it from its sheath, examining the edge in the dim light. The blade is dull, not completely blunt, but dull enough to require attention. You reach for your whetstone, a small rectangle of gray stone worn smooth by countless sharpenings. The stone is cold and slightly damp, with a fine, even texture that speaks of many years of use. You hold the blade at the proper angle against the stone, feeling for the correct position. Too steep, and you'll ruin the edge. Too shallow, and you'll accomplish nothing. The angle must be just right, maintained consistently throughout the sharpening process. The first stroke produces a soft scraping sound, metal against stone. You can feel the slight resistance as the blade bites into the stone's surface. Pull the blade along the stone's length, maintaining the angle, applying steady pressure. The scraping sound is rhythmic, almost musical in its consistency. Flip the blade. Repeat on the other side. The process is slow, methodical, requiring patience and concentration. Each stroke removes a tiny amount of metal, gradually reshaping the edge. You can feel the blade becoming sharper under your hands, the resistance changing subtly as the edge improves. The sound of the sharpening fills the small chamber. Scrape, flip, scrape, flip. Outside, the world continues its business. But in here, there is only the blade, the stone, and the slow, repetitive motion of sharpening. Your shoulders ache from maintaining the proper posture, and your wrists grow tired from the precise movements. After perhaps 20 minutes, you test the blade's sharpness by carefully drawing it across a piece of thread. The thread parts cleanly, falling in 2 pieces to the floor. Satisfied, you wipe the blade with a cloth, removing the tiny metal filings and stone dust that have accumulated on its surface. The blade gleams dully in the weak light, ready for whatever task awaits. You slide the dagger back into its sheath, feeling the satisfying resistance as the leather grips the blade. The weapon sits heavy against your hip, a familiar weight that you've carried for so many years. It's become part of you. Not a tool of glory or excitement, but simply another piece of equipment, like your needle or your whetstone. Now you sit in your small chamber, fully prepared for the journey ahead. Your cloak is mended, your provisions packed, your blade sharp. But the signal to leave has not yet come, so you wait. The waiting is perhaps the worst part. You sit on the cold stone floor, back against the damp wall, and simply exist. There is nothing to do, nowhere to go, no task to occupy your hands or mind, only the slow passage of time, marked by the gradual movement of shadows across the floor and the occasional sound from the world beyond your chamber. Your legs grow numb from sitting in one position. You shift slightly, trying to find a more comfortable arrangement, but the stone floor offers no relief. Every surface is hard, cold, unforgiving. You can feel the dampness seeping through your clothes, a persistent chill that never quite leaves your bones.
The light from the window grows stronger, then begins to fade as the sun passes overhead. Still no signal. You close your eyes and listen to the small sounds of the world around you. Footsteps in the corridor outside, muffled by thick walls. The distant sound of voices, too far away to understand. The soft scratching of a mouse in the walls, going about its own mundane business. Your stomach growls softly. It's been hours since you've eaten, but you dare not touch your provisions. They must last for the journey ahead, and you've learned to ignore the constant low-level hunger that is your companion. Hunger, like cold and discomfort, is simply another part of the job. You open your eyes and watch the light continue its slow journey across the floor. Soon it will be time to leave. Soon you'll trade the familiar discomfort of your chamber for the unknown discomforts of the road. But for now, you wait. And in the waiting, you find a strange kind of peace. The shadows grow longer. The air grows cooler, and still you wait, patient as stone, ready for whatever tedium the night might bring. Soon you think, soon the real boredom will begin. The signal comes at dusk, as you knew it would. A soft knock on your door, 3 taps followed by 2. You rise from the floor, your joints protesting after hours of sitting on cold stone. Your legs are stiff and unsteady, pricking with the sensation of returning blood flow. You gather your provisions and cloak, feeling the familiar weight of your simple kit. The corridor outside your chamber is narrow and dark, lit only by the occasional torch guttering in its wall bracket. The stone walls weep with moisture, and your footsteps echo softly in the confined space. You follow the familiar route through the warren of passages, down worn stone steps that have been polished smooth by countless feet over countless years. The exit is through a small door hidden behind a heavy tapestry. You push through the musty fabric, feeling the dust motes dance in the air around you. The door opens onto a narrow alley between 2 buildings, barely wide enough for a single person to pass. The night air is cold and sharp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and human waste from the city beyond. You wrap your newly mended cloak around your shoulders, pulling the hood up to shadow your face. The wool is rough against your skin, and you can feel the slight ridge where you completed the mending this morning. The cloak is heavy, dragging at your shoulders, but it provides necessary warmth and concealment. The streets are nearly empty at this hour. A few late merchants hurry past, their footsteps echoing off the narrow walls. A dog searches for scraps in the shadows, its ribs visible through its mangy coat. You keep to the darkest paths, avoiding the main thoroughfares where torches might illuminate your passage. The city gives way to countryside gradually. First, the buildings become smaller and more scattered. Then they disappear entirely, replaced by fields and forests. The road beneath your feet changes from worn cobblestones to hard-packed earth, rutted by cartwheels and pocked with holes that catch your feet in the darkness.
You walk steadily, neither hurrying nor dawdling. The pace must be sustainable for many hours, covering ground without exhausting yourself. Your legs find their rhythm quickly, muscle memory taking over from conscious thought. Left foot, right foot. Left foot, right foot. The simple cadence becomes a meditation, a way to quiet the mind during the long hours ahead. The night is cloudy, with only occasional glimpses of stars through the overcast sky. The moon is new, providing no light to guide your way. You navigate by memory and instinct, following the road's pale ribbon through the darkness. Occasionally you stumble on an unseen obstacle, a stone, a root, a deeper rut than expected, but you recover quickly and continue on. Your breath forms small clouds in the cold air, and you can feel the moisture condensing on your face where it meets the night. Your nose begins to run, a thin trickle that you wipe away with the back of your hand. The cold seeps through your boots, thick leather that once fit well, but has stretched and cracked with age. Your feet are always cold on these journeys, never quite warm enough despite the wool hose you wear. Hours pass. The landscape around you is invisible in the darkness, known only by the changing sounds underfoot. The hollow sound of a wooden bridge, the squelch of mud near a stream, the different texture of grass versus packed earth. You cross a small brook, the water running black and silent in the night. The wooden planks of the bridge are slick with dew, and you move carefully to avoid slipping. The road begins to climb, winding up through what you know are rolling hills covered in scrub forest. Your breathing becomes slightly labored, and you can feel the burn in your legs as they work against the incline. But the pace remains steady, unchanged. You've learned to endure discomfort without complaint, to push through fatigue as simply another obstacle to overcome. Dawn comes slowly, a gradual lightening of the eastern sky that reveals the world in stages. First, the horizon becomes visible, a dark line against the slightly lighter sky. Then the shapes of trees and hills emerge from the darkness, black silhouettes against the growing light. Finally, as the sun crests the horizon, the world takes on color and detail. You're walking through farmland now, fields of stubble where grain was harvested weeks ago. The stalks are brown and brittle, rattling softly in the morning breeze. In the distance, you can see a farmhouse, a thin column of smoke rising from its chimney as the family begins their daily routine. But you keep to the road, avoiding any contact with the local inhabitants. The sun climbs higher, and with it comes a blessed warmth that drives away the night's chill. You push back your hood, feeling the sun's rays on your face for the first time in hours. The warmth is wonderful, a small pleasure that makes the discomfort of the journey slightly more bearable. But with the sun comes new discomforts. The cloak that provided essential warmth during the cold night now becomes a burden, heavy and stifling in the growing heat. Sweat begins to gather under your arms and along your back, soaking into the rough wool of your undergarments. The smell of your own body, unwashed for days, mingles with the earthy odor of the road. Your feet begin to ache in earnest now. The boots that felt adequate in the darkness now reveal their every inadequacy. There's a stone caught between the leather and your foot, a constant irritation that you can't quite dislodge. The heel of your right boot has worn unevenly, causing you to walk with a slight limp that grows more pronounced with each mile.
The road stretches ahead, a brown ribbon disappearing into the heat shimmer of the afternoon. Other travelers appear occasionally, a merchant with his cart, a small group of pilgrims, a messenger on horseback. You nod politely if acknowledgement is unavoidable, but mostly you keep your head down and maintain your steady pace. The sun reaches its zenith, beating down with surprising intensity for the season. Your cloak is now unbearably hot, but you can't remove it without revealing the dagger at your belt. So you endure, feeling the sweat trickle down your back and soak into the wool. Your mouth is dry, but you ration the ale carefully, taking only small sips to wet your lips. The afternoon brings new challenges. The road becomes dusty, and every passing cart or group of travelers kicks up clouds of fine earth that get into your eyes and throat. You cough frequently, a dry rasping sound that provides no relief. The dust settles on your clothes and skin, mixing with sweat to create a gritty paste that chafes with every movement. Your stomach growls constantly now. The small meal you ate before leaving feels like a distant memory, but the bread and cheese in your pack must be saved for the evening camp. Hunger is a constant companion, a hollow ache that never quite goes away. You've learned to ignore it, to push through the lightheadedness and weakness it brings. The road passes through a small village, a cluster of wooden buildings with thatched roofs. The inhabitants go about their daily business, women drawing water from the well, children playing in the dusty street, men working in the fields beyond. You keep your head down and walk through quickly, avoiding eye contact. These people live simple lives, but they're not your concern. Your destination lies beyond, in the next county. Evening approaches with agonizing slowness. The sun hangs low in the western sky, painting the world in shades of gold and amber. Your legs feel like lead, and every step requires conscious effort. The pack on your back seems to grow heavier with each mile, the straps cutting into your shoulders despite the padding of your cloak. Finally, as the sun touches the horizon, you leave the road and find a place to camp. It's a small clearing in a grove of trees, hidden from casual observation, but close enough to the road to resume your journey easily in the morning. The ground is covered with fallen leaves, brown and brittle, that crunch underfoot as you explore the area. You clear a small space for your sleeping spot, pushing aside the larger stones and branches. The earth beneath is hard and cold, and you know it will make for an uncomfortable night, but comfort is a luxury you can't afford. You spread your cloak on the ground, creating a barrier between yourself and the damp earth. No fire tonight. The smoke might be seen, and the light would certainly attract attention. So you eat your meager meal cold,
a piece of the hard bread, gnawed slowly to soften it with saliva, and a small portion of the waxy cheese. The food is bland and unsatisfying, but it provides the calories you need to continue tomorrow. The ale is flat and sour, but it wets your throat and helps wash down the dry bread. You drink sparingly, knowing it must last for the rest of the journey. The metal flask is cold against your lips, and you can taste the metallic tang of the container mixed with the ale's bitter flavor. As darkness falls, you wrap yourself in your cloak and lie down on the hard ground. The trees above create a canopy that blocks out most of the sky, and you can hear the small sounds of nocturnal creatures beginning their nightly routines. An owl calls somewhere in the distance, its hollow cry echoing through the forest. Sleep comes fitfully. The ground is too hard, your stomach too empty, your mind too alert for true rest. You doze and wake, never achieving the deep sleep your body craves. Every sound in the forest startles you awake, a branch falling, a small animal rustling through the leaves, or the distant howl of a wolf. The night is long and cold. Your cloak provides some warmth, but it's not enough to ward off the chill that seeps up from the earth and down from the star-filled sky. You shiver frequently, your muscles tensing against the cold, making true rest impossible. Dawn brings little relief. You're stiff and sore from the hard ground, and the cold has settled into your bones. You rise slowly, feeling every joint protest the movement. Your back aches, your legs are cramped, and your feet are already tender in anticipation of another day's walking. You pack your few belongings quickly, eager to begin moving and generate some warmth. The bread is even harder after a night in the cold, and the cheese has taken on a waxy, unpleasant texture. But you eat what you can, knowing you'll need the energy for the long day ahead. The road awaits, stretching endlessly into the distance. You pull your hood up against the morning chill and resume your steady pace. Left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. The rhythm is comforting in its predictability, a constant in a world of discomfort and uncertainty. The journey continues, mile after endless mile, each step bringing you closer to your destination, but also deeper into the profound tedium that defines your existence. This is the reality of your profession, not dramatic chases or exciting encounters, but simply the crushing monotony of putting one foot in front of the other, hour after hour, day after day. And still you walk, because this is what you do. This is who you are. A person who walks roads and waits in shadows, who endures discomfort and embraces boredom, who finds purpose in the most mundane of tasks. The sun climbs higher, and the endless journey continues. Chapter 3. The Long, Cold Wait. After 2 days of walking, you finally reach the town where your target lives. It's a modest settlement, neither wealthy nor poor, with narrow streets that wind between timber-framed buildings. The houses lean together like old friends, sharing secrets, their upper stories nearly touching over the cobblestone streets below. Smoke rises from countless chimneys, creating a haze that hangs over the town like a gray blanket. You don't enter through the main gate. Instead, you circle around to the less watched south approach, where merchants' carts have worn secondary paths through the surrounding fields. A small postern gate here is used primarily by farmers bringing produce to market, and the guards are less vigilant. You wait until a group of peasants approaches with their hand carts and then join them as they pass through, keeping your head down and your pace casual. The streets are busy with the ordinary business of daily life. Housewives haggle with vendors over the price of vegetables. Children dart between the legs of adults, playing games whose rules you don't understand. A blacksmith's hammer rings against his anvil in steady rhythm, the sound echoing off the narrow walls. These are the sounds of normal people, living normal lives, and you envy them their simple concerns.
Your destination is a building near the town's center, close enough to the main square to observe the comings and goings of the local merchants and officials. The building is 3 stories tall, with a shop occupying the ground floor and living quarters above. But it's the cellar that interests you, specifically the small storage room that connects to the building next door through a gap in the foundation that few people know about. The entrance to your hiding place is through an alley so narrow that 2 people couldn't pass without one turning sideways. The walls are slick with moisture and covered in a green slime that speaks of poor drainage and constant dampness. The smell is overwhelming, a mixture of human waste, rotting food, and something else you can't identify but don't want to think about too closely. You find the small wooden door set into the wall, nearly invisible unless you know where to look. The wood is swollen with moisture and requires significant force to open. When it finally gives way, it does so with a groan that seems loud enough to wake the dead. You freeze, listening for any sign that someone heard, but the sounds of the street continue unchanged. The cellar is exactly as you remember it from your previous reconnaissance. A cramped space, perhaps 6 feet wide and 10 feet long, with a ceiling so low you can't stand upright. The walls are rough stone, poorly mortared, with gaps that allow cold air to seep in constantly. The floor is packed earth, slightly damp, with a musty smell that suggests it rarely sees sunlight. You close the door behind you and stand in complete darkness for a moment, letting your eyes adjust. Gradually, you begin to make out shapes in the gloom. There's a small pile of rotting sacks in one corner, remnants of some long-forgotten storage. A broken barrel sits against one wall, its staves spread like the ribs of some ancient creature. And there, in the far corner, is the gap in the foundation that will allow you to observe the building next door. You make your way carefully across the uneven floor, feeling ahead with your feet to avoid stumbling over obstacles. The air is thick and stale, with barely enough oxygen to sustain life. Every breath tastes of mold and decay, and you can feel the dampness settling into your lungs. This will be your home for the next several days, maybe longer. The thought is deeply depressing. You reach the gap in the foundation and peer through. On the other side is another cellar, this one used for legitimate storage. Sacks of grain line the walls, and you can see the wooden supports that hold up the floor above. More importantly, you can see the stairs that lead up to the main building. And if you position yourself correctly, you can observe everyone who comes and goes. But first, you must make this space as comfortable as possible.
You spread your cloak on the packed earth floor, creating a barrier between yourself and the damp ground. The wool is already beginning to absorb moisture from the air, and you know it will be thoroughly soaked within hours. But it's better than sitting directly on the wet earth. You arrange your meager supplies within easy reach. The bread and cheese go in the driest corner you can find, though you know they'll still be affected by the humidity. The ale flask you keep close to your body, hoping your warmth will prevent it from becoming too cold to drink. Your dagger remains at your belt, a familiar weight that provides small comfort in this cheerless place. You position yourself at the gap in the foundation, settling into a crouch that you know you'll maintain for hours at a time. The position is uncomfortable from the start. Your knees pressed against the stone floor, your back bent at an awkward angle, your neck craned to peer through the narrow opening. But comfort is irrelevant now. Your only purpose is to watch and wait. The cellar next door is dark most of the time, lit only by whatever light filters down from the floor above. You can hear the sounds of daily life, footsteps on the wooden floor, muffled voices, the scrape of furniture being moved. But you can see very little, just dim shapes moving in the shadows. Hours pass. Your legs begin to cramp from the constant crouch, and you shift position slightly, trying to relieve the pressure on your knees. The movement sends a sharp pain up your spine, and you bite back a gasp. Even the smallest sound might carry through the thin walls and alert someone to your presence. The cold is constant and pervasive. It seeps through your cloak, through your clothes, through your skin until it seems to settle in your very bones. You shiver frequently, your muscles contracting involuntarily in an attempt to generate warmth. But the shivering only makes you more uncomfortable, and you try to suppress it through sheer willpower. Your stomach growls softly, a sound that seems impossibly loud in the confined space. You've been here for perhaps 4 hours, and already you're thinking about food. But the bread and cheese must be rationed carefully. You don't know how long you'll be here, and running out of food would be catastrophic. So you ignore the hunger and continue your vigil. The light in the cellar next door begins to fade as evening approaches. You can hear increased activity above, the sounds of a meal being prepared, voices raised in conversation, the scrape of chairs being moved. Your target is up there somewhere, living his ordinary life, unaware that he's being watched by someone crouched in the darkness below. As night falls, the cellar becomes completely dark. You can see nothing now, hear very little. The waiting becomes even more difficult when there's nothing to observe, nothing to focus on except the growing discomfort of your position and the increasing cold. You feel around in the darkness for your cloak, pulling it tighter around your shoulders, but it provides little warmth. You try to sleep, but the position is too uncomfortable and the cold too penetrating. You doze fitfully, your head nodding forward until your neck cramps and jolts you awake. The cycle repeats endlessly. A few minutes of uneasy sleep,
then the painful awakening, then the struggle to find a slightly more comfortable position. The night seems to last forever. You have no way to measure time in the complete darkness, no way to know how many hours have passed or how many remain until dawn. You simply exist in a state of suspended animation, neither fully awake nor truly asleep, waiting for the light to return. When morning finally comes, it arrives gradually, a slow lightening of the darkness rather than a sudden illumination. You can begin to make out shapes in the cellar next door, and you resume your position at the gap in the foundation. Your legs are stiff and painful from the night's poor rest, and every movement sends sharp pains through your joints. The sounds of morning activity begin above. Footsteps on the wooden floor, the scrape of furniture, voices raised in conversation. You hear a door open and close, then footsteps on the stairs leading down to the cellar. Your heart rate increases slightly. This could be your first glimpse of the target.
But it's only a servant, a middle-aged woman carrying a clay pot. She moves around the cellar, checking on the stored goods, counting sacks of grain. Her movements are efficient and businesslike, and she's gone within minutes. You settle back to wait for something more interesting. The day passes with agonizing slowness. Occasionally, someone comes down to the cellar. The servant again, an older man who might be the building's owner, a young boy who seems to be looking for something specific, but no sign of your target. You begin to wonder if you're in the right place, if your information was accurate. Your back aches constantly now from maintaining the awkward position. Your knees have gone numb, and you can barely feel your feet. The cold has settled so deep into your bones that you wonder if you'll ever be warm again. But you don't move from your position. This is your job, your purpose. You watch and wait, no matter how uncomfortable it becomes. The bread you eat for your midday meal is soggy with moisture, and it tastes of mold. The cheese has developed a slimy coating that you try to scrape off with your knife. The ale is flat and bitter, but it helps wash down the unappetizing food. You eat quickly, eager to return to your observation post. The afternoon brings more of the same. Occasional visitors to the cellar, none of them your target. The sounds of life continuing above, tantalizingly out of reach. Your own increasing discomfort as the hours drag by. You begin to count the stones in the wall opposite you, anything to occupy your mind during the endless waiting. As the sun begins to set, you allow yourself a moment of despair. An entire day has passed, and you're no closer to completing your mission. Your body aches, your food is running low, and you're beginning to wonder if you can endure many more days of this. But you push the doubts aside. This is your profession, your life. You endure because you must. The second night is worse than the first. The cold seems more intense, the discomfort more acute. You've been in the same position for so long that your muscles have begun to cramp and spasm, but you remain at your post,
watching the empty darkness, waiting for something that may never come. Dawn brings no relief, only the prospect of another day of waiting. You nibble on the last of your bread, trying to make it last as long as possible. The cheese is nearly gone, and the ale is down to a few sips. Soon you'll have to make a decision. Abandon your post to find more food, or continue the vigil and risk starvation. But as the morning light grows stronger, you finally see something that makes the long wait worthwhile. A figure descends the stairs into the cellar, moving with the confident stride of someone who belongs here. Through the gap in the foundation, you get your first clear look at your target. He's younger than you expected, perhaps 30 years old, with dark hair and a neatly trimmed beard. He's well dressed, but not ostentatiously so, in the manner of a successful merchant or minor official. He moves through the cellar with purpose, checking on various items, making notes on a small piece of parchment. You watch him carefully, memorizing every detail of his appearance and behavior. This is why you've endured 2 days of misery. To observe this man, to learn his habits, to find the patterns that will make your eventual mission possible. The knowledge that your suffering has purpose provides a small comfort. The man spends perhaps 10 minutes in the cellar, then returns upstairs. You settle back to wait, knowing that patience is your greatest virtue and your most necessary skill. The hours continue to crawl by. Your target doesn't return to the cellar that day, but you've learned something valuable. His routine includes a morning inspection of the storage areas. This knowledge, small as it is, justifies the discomfort you've endured. You file the information away in your mind, another piece of the puzzle that will eventually allow you to complete your mission. The third day brings new challenges. Your food is completely gone now, and the ale flask holds only a few drops. Your stomach cramps with hunger, and your mouth is dry as dust. But you remain at your post, watching the empty cellar, waiting for your target to return. The dedication required for this profession is absolute. Personal comfort, even basic needs, must be subordinated to the mission. A single sunbeam finds its way through a crack in the wall, creating a narrow shaft of light that moves slowly across the stone floor as the day progresses. You find yourself watching this beam with desperate attention, grateful for any distraction from the monotony of your vigil. The light is warm where it touches your hand, a small blessing in the endless cold. The beam moves with infinite slowness, marking the passage of time in the most gradual way possible. You can almost see it moving if you watch carefully enough, creeping across the rough stone like a living thing. It illuminates dust motes dancing in the air, tiny particles that seem to dance with joy in the warm light. You envy them their freedom. By afternoon, the sunbeam has moved to the opposite wall, and you know that soon it will disappear entirely. The thought of returning to complete darkness is almost unbearable. But you've learned to endure the unbearable, to find strength in the very hopelessness of your situation. This is your life, your chosen path. You embrace the suffering because it gives meaning to your existence. The beam fades as the sun sets, leaving you in darkness once again. But you maintain your position, watching the empty cellar, waiting for tomorrow's opportunities. The cold settles around you like a familiar companion, and you pull your damp cloak tighter around your shoulders. Soon, you think, soon the real work will begin. But for now, you wait. Patient as stone, silent as shadow, ready for whatever tedium the night might bring. This is your profession, your purpose, your life. And in the waiting, you find a strange kind of peace. The darkness deepens, and still you wait. Chapter 4. The Unremarkable Observation. The fourth day brings a change of routine that makes your long vigil worthwhile. Your target appears in the cellar earlier than usual, just as the first light of dawn filters through the crack in the wall. He moves differently today, more hurried, less methodical. You press your eye closer to the gap in the foundation, trying to observe every detail of his behavior. He's carrying a small leather pouch, which he places carefully behind one of the grain sacks. The movement is furtive, secretive, and you realize you're witnessing something significant. He looks around the cellar carefully, as if checking for observers, then adjusts the sack to better conceal the pouch. The entire process takes less than a minute, but it provides valuable information about his habits and concerns.
After he leaves, you settle back to wait, but now your vigil has renewed purpose. You've learned that your target uses the cellar for more than simple storage. He has secrets, things he wishes to keep hidden. This knowledge changes everything about your mission. You're no longer simply observing a merchant's routine. You're uncovering the private behaviors of a man with something to hide. The morning passes more quickly now that you have something specific to watch for. Every sound from above takes on new significance. Every footstep might herald his return. Every creak of the wooden floor might signal another clandestine visit to the cellar. Your discomfort becomes secondary to the thrill of discovery, the satisfaction of finally making progress after days of fruitless waiting. But the hours drag on without his return. The sun climbs higher, its beam moving across the floor with the same torturous slowness as before. Your stomach cramps with hunger, and your mouth is so dry that swallowing becomes difficult. You've been without food for more than a day now, and the lack of sustenance is beginning to affect your concentration. You find yourself dozing at your post, your head nodding forward until your neck cramps and jolts you awake. Each time this happens, you experience a moment of panic. What if he returned while you were sleeping? What if you missed something crucial? But the cellar remains empty, and you force yourself to remain alert despite your body's protests. The afternoon brings a new torture, the smell of cooking food from above. Someone is preparing a meal, and the aroma of roasting meat and baking bread filters down through the wooden floor. Your stomach responds with violent cramping, and you have to press your hand to your mouth to suppress the sound of your own hunger. The smell is exquisite torture, a reminder of everything you've given up to complete this mission. You try to distract yourself by studying the cellar in minute detail. You count the stones in the wall, memorize the pattern of cracks in the mortar, examine the grain of the wooden supports. Anything to keep your mind occupied and prevent it from dwelling on your physical discomfort. But even this mental exercise becomes tedious after a while, and you find yourself staring at the same stones over and over again. As evening approaches, You begin to wonder if your target will return at all. Perhaps the morning visit was an anomaly, a deviation from his normal routine that won't be repeated. The thought is deeply disturbing. It would mean that your days of suffering have been largely wasted, that you'll have to continue this vigil indefinitely. But just as the last light is fading from the cellar, you hear footsteps on the stairs. Your heart rate increases, and you press your eye to the gap in the foundation. It's him, moving with the same furtive manner as before. He goes directly to the grain sack where he hid the pouch, retrieves it, and examines its contents by the dim light filtering from above. You can't see exactly what's in the pouch, but his behavior suggests it's something valuable, coins perhaps, or documents. He handles it with great care, checking its contents methodically before replacing it in its hiding place. The entire process takes only a few minutes, but it confirms your suspicions about his secretive nature. After he leaves, you remain at your post for several more hours, hoping he might return. But the cellar remains empty, and eventually you allow yourself to relax slightly. You've learned something important today. Your target has a routine that includes regular visits to this hiding place. This knowledge will be crucial when it comes time to complete your mission.
The night passes more comfortably than the previous ones, despite your hunger and thirst. The sense of progress, of finally making headway after days of fruitless waiting, provides a kind of spiritual sustenance that helps compensate for the lack of physical nourishment. You doze fitfully, but your dreams are filled with images of success rather than suffering. Dawn of the 5th day brings renewed hope. You position yourself at the gap in the foundation with something approaching eagerness, wondering what new information the day might bring. Your target appears right on schedule, moving with the same careful deliberation as before. But this time, instead of simply checking on his hidden pouch, he retrieves it and leaves the cellar. You feel a moment of panic. Is he abandoning his hiding place? Has he somehow detected your presence? But within an hour, he returns, placing the pouch back in its concealment. You realize he's established a pattern, a morning retrieval, some business conducted elsewhere, then a return to the hiding place. This routine suggests regular meetings or transactions that require whatever he keeps in that pouch. The discovery energizes you despite your weakened state. You're no longer simply watching a man go about his daily business. You're uncovering the structure of his secret activities. Each observation adds another piece to the puzzle, bringing you closer to understanding his vulnerabilities and identifying the best approach for your mission. The day passes with agonizing slowness, but you maintain your vigil with renewed dedication. Every sound from above is analyzed. Every movement in the cellar is memorized. You're building a complete picture of your target's behavior, learning the rhythms and patterns that will eventually allow you to predict his actions. Your body continues to deteriorate from the lack of food and the constant uncomfortable position. Your legs are completely numb below the knees, and your back aches with a deep, persistent pain that never quite goes away. But these physical concerns seem less important now that you're making real progress. The mission has become everything, and personal comfort is irrelevant. As the sun sets, you observe your target's evening routine.
He appears in the cellar just as the light is fading, checks on his pouch one final time, then returns upstairs. The timing is consistent with his previous visits, suggesting a well-established pattern. You file this information away with the rest, building a comprehensive understanding of his habits. The sixth day brings a new challenge. You wake to the sound of voices in the cellar next door, not your target, but several other men engaged in animated conversation. They're discussing business matters, prices and quantities, and delivery schedules. Their voices are too muffled for you to understand every word, but their presence complicates your observation. You remain motionless at your post, barely breathing for fear of detection. The men seem to be using the cellar for some kind of meeting, and they remain for more than an hour. During this time, you can't shift position or make any sound that might alert them to your presence. The strain is enormous, and by the time they leave, your muscles are cramping severely. But their conversation has provided new information. You heard your target's voice among the others, confirming that he's involved in some kind of business partnership or consortium. The details were unclear, but the secretive nature of the meeting suggests it's not entirely legitimate. This knowledge adds another layer to your understanding of his activities.
The rest of the day passes without incident. Your target maintains his routine: morning retrieval, midday absence, evening return. But now you understand that his activities are part of a larger network, that he's not acting alone. This complicates your mission, but also provides new opportunities. A man with partners has more vulnerabilities than one who operates in isolation. As night falls, you allow yourself a moment of satisfaction. Despite the physical suffering, despite the hunger and cold and crushing boredom, you've accomplished something significant. You've uncovered the structure of your target's secret activities, learned his patterns and routines, identified his vulnerabilities. The mission is no longer impossible. It's simply a matter of choosing the right moment and method. But that moment hasn't come yet. You settle back into your uncomfortable position, preparing for another night of fitful sleep and another day of patient observation. The work is far from over, and the most challenging part still lies ahead. But you've proven that you can endure, that you can find purpose in the most mundane suffering. The darkness settles around you like a familiar friend, and you close your eyes, ready for whatever tedium tomorrow might bring. This is your life, your chosen path, and in the patient watching, in the careful observation of ordinary details, you find a strange kind of fulfillment. The vigil continues, hour by hour, day by day, and somewhere in the endless waiting, you begin to understand that the boredom itself is your greatest weapon. Your ability to endure the unendurable, to find meaning in meaninglessness, to wait with infinite patience for the perfect moment. These are the skills that define your profession. You are a master of the mundane, a virtuoso of the tedious, and in a world where most people crave excitement and stimulation, your embrace of boredom makes you uniquely dangerous. The night deepens, And still you wait, patient as stone, silent as shadow. Tomorrow will bring new observations, new details to file away in your comprehensive understanding of your target's life. And eventually, when the moment is right, all of this patient watching will culminate in a single, decisive action. But for now, you wait, and in the waiting, you find peace. Chapter 5. The Quiet Return and Deep Rest. On the seventh day, your vigil finally comes to an end, not because you've completed your mission, but because you've gathered enough information to plan your next steps. Your target's routine is now as familiar to you as your own breathing. You know when he wakes, when he eats, when he conducts his secret business. You've identified his vulnerabilities, his habits, his fears. The groundwork has been laid, and now you must retreat to plan the final phase of your assignment. The decision to leave brings mixed emotions. Relief at the prospect of escaping this cramped, cold hiding place wars with anxiety about abandoning your post. What if something changes in his routine? What if I miss a crucial detail? But you've learned all you can from this position, and remaining longer would serve no purpose except to increase your suffering. You begin the slow, agonizing process of movement. Your legs have been folded in the same position for so long that they've gone completely numb. When you try to shift position, nothing happens. You can see your legs, but you can't feel them. The sensation is deeply unsettling, as if parts of your body have simply ceased to exist. Gradually, feeling begins to return. First comes the tingling, like thousands of tiny needles pricking your skin. Then the burning sensation as blood flow resumes. Finally, the deep, throbbing pain as your joints protest their enforced immobility. Each stage is more uncomfortable than the last, and you have to bite your lip to prevent yourself from crying out. Standing is an ordeal that takes several minutes. Your legs won't support your weight at first, and you have to use the wall for balance. Every movement sends sharp pains through your joints, and your muscles shake with the effort of supporting your body. You feel like an old man, decrepit and frail, though you're still in your prime years. Your back is the worst. The constant hunching over has compressed your spine, and now every vertebra seems to be grinding against its neighbors. When you try to straighten up, the pain is so intense that you see stars. You lean against the wall, breathing heavily, waiting for the worst of the agony to subside. Slowly, carefully, you begin to move around the small cellar. Each step is a deliberate effort, each movement planned and executed with extreme caution. Your body feels foreign to you, as if it belongs to someone else. But gradually, circulation returns and mobility improves. You're not back to normal. You may never be completely normal again, but you're functional enough to travel. You gather your few possessions with hands that shake from weakness. Your cloak is thoroughly soaked with moisture and smells of mold and decay. Your dagger feels impossibly heavy in your hand, and you have to concentrate to maintain your grip on it. The simple act of rolling up your damp cloak becomes a monumental task that leaves you exhausted.
Leaving the cellar is almost as difficult as the initial infiltration. The door has swollen even more in the dampness, and it takes all your remaining strength to force it open. When it finally gives way, the sound seems deafeningly loud in the narrow alley. You freeze, listening for any sign of alarm, but the town continues its daily business undisturbed. The alley is as foul as ever, but after 7 days in the cellar, even this polluted air tastes fresh and clean. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with the relatively clean air, feeling almost intoxicated by the sensation. The simple act of breathing freely becomes a profound pleasure, a reminder of all the small comforts you've been denied. You make your way carefully through the narrow streets, staying to the shadows and avoiding the main thoroughfares. Your movements are slow and deliberate, partly from weakness and partly from caution. You can't afford to be seen or remembered, especially not in your current bedraggled state. Anyone who saw you would remember a man who looked sick, desperate, possibly dangerous. The journey out of town takes twice as long as your original entry. You have to stop frequently to rest, leaning against walls or sitting on doorsteps when the weakness becomes overwhelming. Each time you stop, you risk exposure, but you have no choice. Your body simply won't carry you any further without rest. Finally, you reach the outskirts of town and begin the long journey home. The road stretches ahead, the same dusty track you traveled a week ago, but now it seems impossibly long. Your legs are unsteady, your vision occasionally blurs, and you have to concentrate on each step to avoid stumbling. The pack on your back, empty now, except for your damp cloak, feels like it weighs 100 pounds. The sun is warm on your face, a sensation so pleasant after the cold cellar that you almost weep with gratitude. You walk slowly, savoring the feelings of sunlight on your skin, the sensation of air moving freely around your body. These simple pleasures, taken for granted by most people, now seem like the greatest luxuries imaginable. But the warmth also reveals the full extent of your deterioration. Your clothes are rank with the smell of mold and unwashed flesh. Your hair is matted and greasy, and you can feel the stubble of a week's growth on your face. Your skin is pale and clammy, and you suspect you look more like a corpse than a living man. The transformation is complete. You've become a creature of shadows and darkness, shaped by the requirements of your profession. The first day of travel is agony. Every step sends pain shooting through your legs, and your back aches with a deep, persistent throb. You have to stop frequently, not just to rest, but to vomit. Your empty stomach heaves repeatedly, producing nothing but bile and the bitter taste of suffering. The retching leaves you weak and dizzy, clinging to roadside stones for support. As the sun sets, you find a place to rest in a small grove of trees. The ground is soft here, covered with fallen leaves, and you sink onto it with profound relief. The earth feels wonderfully warm and yielding after the stone floor of the cellar. You spread your damp cloak beneath you, but for the first time in days, you're not desperately cold. Sleep comes quickly, deeply, dreamlessly. Your body finally surrenders to the exhaustion that has been building for days. You sleep through the night without waking, without the constant vigilance that has defined your existence for the past week. It's the sleep of the dead, profound and restorative. Dawn brings renewed strength. You're still weak, still unsteady, but the deep sleep has begun the healing process. Your legs feel more solid beneath you, and your back, while still painful, no longer threatens to collapse entirely. You eat nothing, you have no food and no appetite, but you drink deeply from a small stream, feeling the cool water revive your dehydrated body. The second day of travel is easier. Your pace is still slow, but you can walk for longer periods without stopping. The sun feels good on your face, and you begin to notice the world around you again. The colors seem more vivid after the gray darkness of the cellar. The sounds of birds and insects are music after the oppressive silence of your hiding place. You pass other travelers on the road, but they give you a wide berth. Your appearance is clearly that of a man who has endured great hardship, and people instinctively avoid contact with obvious trouble. You're grateful for their avoidance. Conversation would be beyond your current capabilities, and questions would be dangerous.
As the day progresses, you begin to think about food. Your stomach has been empty for so long that the sensation of hunger has become a constant background noise, like the sound of wind or the feeling of your own heartbeat. But now, with your strength slowly returning, the hunger becomes more acute. You pass a farm where the smell of baking bread drifts from the house, and you have to stop and lean against a fence post until the wave of desire passes. The third day brings the first real test of your recovery. The road begins to climb into the hills that surround your home territory, and the increased exertion reveals the true extent of your weakness. Your legs shake with the effort of climbing, and you have to rest every 100 yards, but you persist, driven by the knowledge that safety lies ahead. As evening approaches, you crest a hill and see the familiar landscape of home spread out below you. The sight brings unexpected emotion, relief, gratitude, and a deep weariness that goes beyond mere physical exhaustion. You've completed your mission, survived the ordeal, and returned to tell the tale. The knowledge that you've succeeded gives you strength for the final push. The last few miles are the most difficult. So close to safety, your body seems to give up the struggle that has sustained you for days. Each step becomes a conscious effort, each breath a deliberate act. But you continue, driven by the promise of rest, of safety, of the simple pleasure of lying down in a warm, dry place. Finally, as full darkness falls, you reach the entrance to your sanctuary. The familiar passages welcome you like the embrace of an old friend. The stone walls that once seemed cold and forbidding now feel like the most beautiful architecture ever created. The dampness that you once found uncomfortable now seems merely atmospheric, part of the charm of home. You make your way slowly through the corridors, past the chambers where other operatives conduct their own preparations for missions. A few nod in recognition, but most ignore you. This is not a place for conversation or camaraderie. Everyone here understands the need for privacy, for quiet, for the space to process the experiences that define this profession. Your own chamber seems smaller than you remember, but infinitely welcoming. The stone floor that once felt so uncomfortable now seems like the finest carpet. The narrow window that provided so little light now seems perfectly adequate. The simple furnishings, a wooden chest, a small table, a single chair, now seem like the height of luxury. But it's the bed that captures your attention. A simple wooden frame supporting a straw mattress, covered with rough woolen blankets. Nothing fancy, nothing comfortable by most standards, but to you, after 7 days on stone and earth, it looks like paradise. The mattress is soft and yielding, the blankets warm and dry. The very sight of it makes you almost dizzy with anticipation. You remove your cloak first, letting it fall to the floor in a damp heap. The smell that rises from it is terrible. Mold, decay, human misery. You'll need to clean it thoroughly before it can be used again, but that's a task for tomorrow. Tonight, you want nothing more than to be free of its weight and dampness. Your boots come next, unlaced with trembling fingers. The leather is stiff and cracked, and your feet have swollen from the long walk. Getting the boots off is a struggle, but when your feet finally emerge, the relief is indescribable. They're pale and soft, with angry red marks where the leather has rubbed, but they're clean and dry, and they feel wonderful against the cool air of the chamber. You sit on the edge of the bed, feeling the mattress give slightly under your weight. The sensation is extraordinary after so many days on hard surfaces. The straw rustles softly as you shift position, a sound that seems musical after the oppressive silence of the cellar. You run your hands over the rough blankets, feeling their texture, their warmth, their promise of comfort. Lying down is almost overwhelming. Your body sinks into the mattress, and every muscle seems to sigh with relief. The blankets are heavy and warm, wrapping around you like a cocoon. Your head falls back against the pillow, and you close your eyes, feeling the tension drain from your body like water from a broken vessel.
The bed cradles you gently, supporting your aching back and tired limbs. The blankets trap your body heat, creating a cocoon of warmth that gradually penetrates your chilled flesh. For the first time in days, you're truly comfortable, truly safe, truly at rest. Sleep comes like a tide, rising from the depths of your exhaustion to claim you completely. Your breathing slows and deepens. Your heartbeat becomes steady and strong. The pain in your joints fades to a distant memory, and the hunger that has gnawed at you for days becomes irrelevant. There is only the bed, the blankets, and the profound peace of complete rest. Your dreams are formless and gentle, filled with images of warmth and safety. You dream of sunlight streaming through windows, of soft beds and warm fires, of simple pleasures that most people take for granted. But you've earned these dreams through suffering, through endurance, through the willingness to sacrifice everything for the mission. The night passes in deep, restorative sleep. Your body begins the long process of healing, of recovering from the ordeal you've endured. Your muscles relax, your joints decompress. Your mind finally releases the constant vigilance that has defined your existence for the past week. You sleep like the dead, but you're very much alive. Dawn brings no urgency to wake. For the first time in days, you have nowhere to go, nothing to watch, no mission to complete. You can simply lie in the warm bed, feeling the soft mattress beneath you, the gentle weight of the blankets above you. The sensation is so pleasant that you almost weep with gratitude. When you finally wake, the sun is high in the sky. You've slept for perhaps 12 hours, deeper and more completely than you have in years. Your body feels heavy and sluggish, but the pain has receded to manageable levels. You're still weak, still exhausted, but you're alive. You've survived another mission, endured another test of your profession's demands. You lie in bed for a long time, savoring the simple pleasure of being horizontal, of being warm, of being safe. The mission is over, the ordeal complete. Soon you'll have to rise, to eat, to begin the process of recovery. But for now, you simply exist in the perfect peace of deep rest. This is your reward for the suffering you've endured. Not gold, or glory, or recognition, but simply the profound pleasure of lying in a warm bed after days of cold and discomfort. It's enough. It's more than enough. It's everything. The world continues its business outside your chamber, but you're no longer part of it. You're suspended in a timeless moment of perfect rest, perfect peace, perfect comfort. The bed embraces you like a lover. The blankets protect you like armor. The quiet chamber shelters you like a sanctuary. And in this moment of profound rest, you understand something fundamental about your profession. The suffering isn't just an occupational hazard, it's what makes the simple pleasures meaningful. The cold makes warmth precious. The hunger makes food sacred. The discomfort makes comfort divine. You close your eyes and surrender to the deep, dreamless sleep that your body craves. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new missions, new ordeals to endure. But tonight, you rest. Tonight, you heal. Tonight, you remember what it means to be truly at peace. The darkness embraces you gently, and you drift away on waves of the most profound rest you have ever known. This is your sanctuary, your reward, your salvation. In the quiet chamber, in the warm bed, in the gentle embrace of sleep, you find everything you need. And in the finding, you discover that sometimes the greatest adventures are the ones that end with the simple pleasure of lying down to rest. The bed cradles you safely, the blankets keep you warm, and the night watches over you like a guardian angel. Sleep comes like a benediction, and you surrender to its embrace completely. This is your peace, your reward, your home. And in the gentle darkness, you find the rest that makes all the suffering worthwhile. The night deepens, and still you sleep, dreaming of nothing but the profound comfort of being exactly where you are, safe, warm, at rest, at peace. And so ends another tale from the forgotten corners of history, where the greatest adventures often consist of simply enduring what must be endured. Rest well, traveler. Rest deep. And may your own dreams be filled with the simple pleasure of a warm bed and a peaceful night. Sleep now.